Hello, everyone. I am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and I'm really excited about today's guest. She's an amazing soul who she's so modest. I mean, that's one of the first words that comes to mind, and definitely service oriented is in wanting to help you. So let's just bring her onto the stage. Dr. Theresa Larson, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Julie. I'm excited to be here.
You know, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while, and I really enjoyed the first time we spoke. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself so that the audience can feel a part of, you know, what we've already experienced with each other.
Yeah. So, well, let's start with the fact that I live in a mountain town in Southwest Colorado. I have 2 little boys, and I have an amazing husband that I get to work with. Not the little boys, my husband. And yeah, I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I'm 6'1", love to play basketball and softball. I actually played a year of professional softball in Italy, post Marine Corps. Wow. And then became a doctor of physical therapy because I was like, what the hell am I going to do with my life after my transition from the service and playing professional softball, which made me very little money. It's like I have to find a profession that I can actually, you know, support myself. But then come to find out physical therapy wasn't for me either in terms of the traditional sense. And so I pivoted really quickly and started my own business and have created ever since what I felt is really needed in the world of well-being. Well, in the world.
I love that. And to you, what does well-being mean?
Oh, yeah, that's a good. So well-being is actually, to me, it means a mindset. It's a mindset followed by an action. So the definition of well-being is actually how someone feels about their life. But for me, it's more than just a feeling. It's the actions you take to be well. And so I know we're going to dive into some of those things today, but yeah, it's not just, it's the mindset followed by the action.
I think that is really important and a great distinction because it kind of takes me back to the idea of the movie The Secret, where it's like you sit in this chair and you dream about a Lamborghini. It's supposed to magically show up at your door. Yeah, it doesn't quite work like that. Right. We're missing the action piece.
Yeah, that is actually, that's a big part of what the problem is that people face in the world is taking action.
You know, that whole saying, faith without works is dead. And I mean, it's even how many thousands of years ago was that written? And it's something we've always known, but I think too, in the United States, there's this idea of, it's a microwave society. We want the fastest, quickest, easiest way without realizing that, you know, the struggle is really where, and it doesn't even have to necessarily be a struggle, but the effort is really where the joy is. And I'm curious, you know, considering your background, how often have you pushed yourself past what you thought your limits were?
Well, it's a great question. I feel like I do that on a daily basis, because it's when I look at like the whole idea of living uncomfortably. I mean, I like comfort in certain areas, but for the most part, every day there's discomfort. Like whether it's in business, I do putting myself out there, conversations I have with friends, even with my children. I make myself uncomfortable every day because I know that I'm going to grow because of that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where life happens. And I really am not looking to be mediocre. I'm looking to make a difference. And not only in my own life as a human being, see what's possible in my life. I have to push myself, but people around me, to include my family and community and further extension the world. So I have to set the example for that of what I want to see other people do. Yeah, like the actions I take every day, usually, and there's like a lot of feelings of like, I don't really feel like doing this. This is really uncomfortable. Like even last night, I'll share this with you. I put out 5 different proposals in my business yesterday, and then, you know, had some stuff going on with my little one, 6 year old after school. And then there was basketball practice and like a lot of chaos with my other little one. And I'm at the end of the day, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm feeling very like more anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's okay. This is normal. I put myself out there today. Now, how do I down regulate after all that?
Ooh,
You know,
yes.
how do I come down off of that?
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave myself some space. Usually, obviously, when I put the kids to bed, my husband and I have some time together, but I even needed some space from that, and just being okay to ask for that versus expect it. It's like, okay, I need to take some space. You can make lunches tonight. I'll make them tomorrow. And that was very helpful for me to get into the evening with my husband. But like, yeah, yesterday was uncomfortable because I put myself out there more than usual, which is I put myself out there every day, but um, I love it too. 'Cause I'm like, how else am I going to make a difference?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to do it from your couch.
Yeah.
It
And
really
like,
is.
and I was actually, and this goes into the human piece, is sometimes it's lonely too. Like I sat there at the end of the day, is like, who am I going to talk to about this? My husband will listen, of course, because he's in it with me. But I have a few friends in the entrepreneurial space, right? And putting
Mm-hmm.
myself out there. But at the end of the day, like the last thing I want to do is have a long conversation. But it is really nice to have people in your life who get it. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, and that's where I'm at, is like I don't necessarily have a ton of people in my life who get the discomfort of being an entrepreneur and putting yourself out there every day and getting turned down.
Yeah.
Um, and and that sometimes, that's the reality, is sometimes it kind of feels a little lonely. I'm not alone, but
Yeah.
sometimes it can feel lonely.
Well, there's two things that I'd like to highlight. Is one is that you don't expect to receive everything from your husband, which I think is absolutely
Yes,
amazing because
yes, yeah,
we could all learn a lesson there.
yeah, yep, absolutely.
But also this idea of, it is a space that is, you have to do it on your own. Like you're not alone, but it's lonely. Like you said, you have to
Yeah,
walk the steps. You have to do the thing on your own. And there may be people that understand, and there are, but it's so hard to find them. And
yeah,
then it's like, do you really want to even talk into that? Like speak it,
right. Yeah,
So I totally appreciate you mentioning those things because myself as an entrepreneur who works from home mostly, my interactions are with my dog and then like
yeah, yeah. Right. I mean, it's so I like this phrase. It's the heart I choose, right?
Mhm.
Behind me here, I've got Rocky Balboa. It's not how hard you hit, but how hard you can get hit. Keep moving
Yeah.
forward. That's I think that's a really wonderful principle to remember. I don't even call it just a quote. It's a principle. Like life is
Mhm.
hard. So
Yeah.
I choose the hard of making my own way and giving the world what I know it needs versus
Mhm.
fitting into the box of what PTs or whatever what I'm supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
And but they're both hard. Like
Yeah.
one, there's a lack of necessarily stability, right? Every month is a little bit different. And yes, there's growth, but it's not like steady, like if you worked in
Yeah.
a regular clinic. So it's the hard I choose. Just like with well-being, right? You
Hmm.
can choose the hard of sitting on your couch and doing nothing, or saying maybe someday, and oh, by the way, someday, most likely there's going to be systemic disease in your future. Not to fearmonger, but that's just the reality,
Yeah.
right? Or you could choose the hard of getting up, moving, meditating, right? Paying attention to what you eat. And that's hard too, because it takes
Mhm.
commitment, but the benefits are greater. So,
Yes.
yeah,
No, I love that so much. It's interesting because I can't remember who said it, but it's kind of like I can't swear because FCC rules, but it's every job has a crap sandwich and you have to decide which crap sandwich you want to eat. So it's kind of like just this idea, everything has this downside. So which hard, I love that because it's just, what are you going to choose for yourself? And, I had the opportunity to live in Italy for a little over a year. And I wasn't I just went and I moved there. I just lived there. So it wasn't like I was on a study abroad or anything like
yeah,
that, which is totally different. So I made American friends while I was there. But it was a totally different experience. And it took me so long to figure out after I moved back to New York, it took me so long to figure out why I was so happy in Italy. And it wasn't because it's Italy, because where I lived there, it's different than being, on vacation. It's totally different.
yeah, yep,
Your
yep.
everyday life is there. You live there. But it was because I was slightly uncomfortable almost all of the time. And that's why I was so happy, because
Mhm.
I didn't have the opportunity to slink back into my comfort zone and like turn on the TV and tune out from life, or go,
Right.
like I didn't have that opportunity. I couldn't do that.
Yeah,
And I was so happy, even though it was hard.
yeah. Well, that's a really good point. Life is hard, so it's the hard you choose,
Yeah.
right? And you were living there. You were really living,
Yeah.
right? Embracing life and the culture. And when you're not numbing, right, in life, because you're just like, I hate my job. I can't wait to get home. I can't wait for living for the weekends, right? That's
Yeah. Living for the weekend.
probably a lot of, people listening can relate to that, or friends of theirs, right? Like I've experienced that here. People live for the weekends.
Yep.
I live for each day. Like, and not every day is sunshine and rainbows. Like it's not. And when those, I mean, every day there's a moment of like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And it passes,
Yeah.
right? And then at the end of the day, I look back and I'm like, wow, look what we've done. Look at the conversations I had. Or I admitted I messed up, right? I
Hmm.
messed up, especially sometimes with my children. I can fly off my handle, even though I practice mindfulness. I'm a human being, but
Hmm.
like but I would rather be exhausted from all of the discomfort and stuff I've done, put myself out there, versus being like, whatever. We can't wait till the weekend.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because I have lost a lot of people. Um, they passed away very, very young. And so it kind of really taught me that how short life can be. And because, we get stuck in the day to day and the moving and the grind of whatever, without really realizing or seeing the big picture. And, something really stuck to, like, made me think, it's like, when I get to the end of my life, am I gonna be so glad I binge watched that Netflix series? Like that's how I spent my time on Earth. you know,
Yeah.
Zoning out from my life and watching something else that's not even real on television. So, I think about things like that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with watching television or anything like that, but what are you doing it for? And how, like, are you using it to escape your life? Or
Right.
what are your coping mechanisms, and do they need an upgrade?
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. I think, I mean, obviously media is a part of our life. So I kind of think of that in terms of when social media for me is, I'm very, I use it for work purposes and also to test messaging, especially on LinkedIn. And I appreciate it, yet I have strong boundaries with it because the last thing I want, and I've experienced this with my own kids, is I'm on my phone and my kids are like, get off your phone. Why are you not paying attention to us? And that hurts. When you
Yeah.
have like a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old telling you, right? And I'll admit it, like I've been that parent who's been on their phone, or when I first had children, like addicted to social media because what else am I going to do? Just sit there with the baby? I could be there with the baby,
Yeah.
right? And so, but I will acknowledge, but the key there is that became aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is about too, is awareness. We're not perfect, nor am I
No.
asking anyone to be perfect, but like be aware that some of the things that you're doing, you're numbing out from what's in the precious present. And it takes training to be in the precious present.
It
It's
does.
not like you're just going to be like, oh, I'm in the precious present right now. You have to, that's why mindfulness and meditation are such powerful practices
Mm-hmm.
for the brain, because it trains you to be present, right? Right now, me talking to you, if it was 5 years ago, I'd have like 20 windows open, right? Other things I would be thinking about. The conversation may be great, but it might be also pretty distracting.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now, like, it's taken me a while to really make these things part of my life. But I'll tell you what, I'm glad, because as you mentioned, living with the end in mind, it is important to think like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you want to live? I
Yeah.
don't want to be distracted. And how do I want the last 10 years of my life to look like? I don't want to be stuck to a chair with a cane.
Yeah.
I want to do everything I can to be as healthy as possible. And that doesn't mean I'm not, there's certain things that might happen, right? I can't control everything, but there's a lot I can by how I pay attention to my life now and live. And I've, through loss also, has woken me up to, yep, I'm not going to F around anymore. Like, I need to change my business. I need to change my life. I need to change how I show up for myself and my family.
I love that. It sounds very holistic with your life in mind versus, I think that there's this idea in the United States where we separate work from life. I'm like, what do you think you're doing?
Yeah, you can't. You can't.
It is your life. You are literally exchanging your life for this. So, is this really what you want to do?
Right. Absolutely. No, you can't separate work and life.
I mean, that's,
Um,
yeah.
it's your life outside of work will impact your work. Your work will impact your life. And if you don't believe that, you're under a rock somewhere. Like,
Exactly.
you're not awake.
It's fascinating because I worked in addiction recovery for about 6 years, and it was a really
Wow.
stressful job, really stressful. And you can understand. I mean, there's people dying all the time, and, people that you genuinely form attachments to and care about. And then plus the people that you work with, you know, and I work there too, so I have my own issues. So I'm not trying to say I was totally normal, but they have their issues also. So it's like you're around all this craziness constantly, and
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like as soon as I quit that job, my life just like I met my husband, like my career
Yeah.
outside of there took off. I mean, you name it. It was like when I finally let go of like needing that validation and that secure paycheck, which, I'm using like Nixon air quotes because COVID taught us there's no such thing as that either.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's being thoughtful about how you're living, and not everyone is, depending on your situation, can say their job may not be fulfilling for them, or it might be causing them a lot of stress. Like, we work with a lot of organizations that, like, they chose to be a forensic scientist, and in that work, it's stressful
Mm-hmm.
based on what they have to do every day. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a level of acceptance you have to have for the reality of your job, but how are you handling that stress? in the day and then also when you leave.
Exactly.
And I think working with organizations, sometimes people are like, well, my boss, if they're wanting me to be, if they're offering these well-being trainings, my boss should give me time at work to do it. And yeah, I mean, they could, but
Uh-huh.
I'm like, it's your responsibility to take care of you. So if
Hmm.
you need the time, you ask for it, but you also take that time outside of work. If
Yeah.
you don't get it at work, like you figure it out. If this
Exactly.
job, if you join this job for a reason,
Hmm.
it's paying your bills, it's providing your family stability. Your job is also to take care of yourself. Your leader can only provide you the resources. You have to do it. That's something I see a lot in the workplace is like people pass off this responsibility. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like even with my kids now, when they
Hmm.
start using kind of, because as they're growing, it's like, well, they did that to me or that, it wasn't my fault. Nothing, things happen to you, but how you respond matters.
Exactly.
And you can take ownership of it. You can say no. You can say stop, right? You are the one responsible for how you act and what
Mhm.
you do. Um, and so I think people need to hear that.
They do. I love that. We do need to go to a commercial break. So when we come back, we're going to talk about some other wellness principles because you know what? I think what you just talked about is a wellness principle. Own your wellness, like
Yeah,
own
own
your
it.
actions, own it, own it, own it.
Own
All
it.
right. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back, everyone. I am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and today's amazing guest is Dr. Theresa Larson. Welcome back to the show.
Hello.
Before the commercial break, we were talking about this idea of taking responsibility for, the things that are going on and responding versus throwing the buck on to somebody else. And it is just so ingrained. I mean, you're talking about your kids who are, younger, and it's just habit. It's like, where did we pick this up from? Why, it's actually so much more powerful to own it because then you can do something about it.
Absolutely. Well, being aware of it is important, the language you use. There's this concept too called that I think people get in trouble, and they don't realize it when they create these judgments around people because they really don't know what's going on. So there's this concept of fact versus story. Um, Facts are like what is the truth of the event. So for example, an injury, I injured my shoulder. What Where did I injure my shoulder? How did I injure it? The story is what you make it mean, right? Like, oh, I'm not an athlete anymore. I'm weak. Or it could be around a certain person, right? Oh, they didn't show up or didn't respond to me. So I'm going to make up this story about what it means. We get in trouble when we do that. And it creates this victim mentality. And I can't stand that. And that is something in the mindset focus piece of our wellness work with organizations. We talk about that in like fixed versus growth mindset because it just like affects and infects a company
Ooh,
culture.
it does.
When you have this story, like you don't even really know like what's going on in people's lives, and giving yourself the chance to identify fact versus story can also help you heal and move forward and not make up these false stories around what things mean. I mean, we give meaning to everything, but like we get in trouble when we just make up a story we don't really know the full picture of or all the facts.
No, exactly. And it's like if you're going to make up a story, why not make up a good one? One that serves you anyway.
Right. And that's the beauty of like looking back at your life too, is you can reframe everything and you can look at all the hard experiences or ones that didn't bring you joy and reframe them to bring you joy and growth, right? Like not every experience will do that, but if you can look at every experience as a growth opportunity versus, oh man, like shaming yourself, shaming only infects blame on yourself and then you start to blame others. And that's where you can get into the spiral of, um, a fixed mindset as well
Yeah.
as not, and as well as never growing so that's what's, I think it's really important. Like mindset matters so much, and being aware that if you're starting to be a victim, what's the victim mentality that you're taking on or the false stories you're creating for yourself, like how those infect your life. They do. And if you can be aware of those and reframe them, it opens up your life.
Exactly.
We're not perfect human beings. Like there's
No.
so many things that I'm like, wow, I did that. Mm-hmm. Yep. And oh well, got to move
Yeah.
on. But before I'd be like shaming myself, and then it just creates tension, and
It
that
does.
physical tension just builds. It's not fun.
No. Well, here's the thing. It's like, okay, I did this, but I can't go back and change it. I'm just not going to do it again.
Yeah,
If I
exactly.
need to make some sort of amends or something like that, then I will go and say sorry and do what I can to remedy the
Right.
aftermath of my choices. But
Yeah.
it's what's done is done, as they say.
Yep.
So
Yep. Absolutely.
we've touched a little bit on how you help people, but we haven't really touched like can you explain you're talking about working with organizations, and
Yeah.
I know that you have a gift for everyone here today, and I just love for you to sort of talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I have this lifestyle RX that is basically spells out the 5 components of well-being. So whenever we work with an organization, we always start with their leadership, because we know that if there's not leadership buy-in, right, it's not going to trickle down, right? If leaders don't set the example or believe in it, then they're obviously not going to pass it on to their people, um, or set the example. But this lifestyle are actually something I provide people because it gives them an idea, well, very clear points on what they should be doing in the 5 components of well-being, which is sleep, mindset, social support, movement, and then food. So, in those areas you can control, there are researched things, basically 3 points under each section that are like, am I doing this? Yes or no? And everyone can have that because what it'll do is give you very grounded feedback on, okay, am I doing this? Yes or no? And if I'm
Mhm.
not, well, you start to implement it over time. On the back side of that sheet is my 10 favorite wellness drills. So I have like, I used to be blonde too, by the way.
Sorry.
So yeah, that's so on the back is my 10 favorite wellness drills, which is I call them self mobilizations, where like if you're having aches and pains in your neck or your shoulder or your hips, right? There's different tools and videos you can watch. 10 of my favorite videos actually on how to release those areas with your own, like if you have lacrosse balls or tennis balls. So I think you all will appreciate those.
Mhm.
Those videos are like 30 seconds long, but this Lifestyle RX gives you a really solid resource. And that is exactly what we want to be, what we do for organizations is we are a solid, supportive resource to inflict in behavior change in well-being. So we always tie every behavior, sleep, food, mindset, movement, social support to leadership. How does it impact your leadership? It's got to be a baseline layer of training that organizations get, starting with the
Mhm.
top, because um, you know, what typically happens as people age? Well, they start to gain a bunch of weight. Their health starts to go downhill. They become workaholics. They have family. So work and family become take precedent. Their self-care is a nice to have until they get sick. And
Yeah.
so my job is my team's job is to go in, help an organization immediately, help their leadership get more energy, feel better, show up as kinder humans, more innovative, right? Because obviously, if you start to meditate and eat better and sleep, you're going to think more creatively, and
Mhm.
then pass those resources on down to the people.
I love that. I have this thing, and I'm supposed to be on a podcast in the very near future. And one of the things that she was attracted to that I was talking about was how I'm doing my first Olympic triathlon in April, and I've never done one. I've never done a triathlon. I've never done a marathon. I've never done a half. Like I've never done any of that. And I'll be 46 by then. So
Yeah,
I'm like, you know what? First of all, I could do it because I said I'm going to do it. So it will happen. But this idea that I have big business goals and I have big life goals. And if I want to reach those faster and with more ease and grace, then I better set a physical goal to go along with it.
absolutely.
Because it's who you're being and how you show up. So I think people miss this whole aspect of why wellness is important. It's like we think of it as more like, well, I need to fit my skinny jeans. Well, that's not wellness.
Yeah. No, no, I think I like to use this analogy of an azimuth. Like if you have a compass, right, and I mean, everyone wants to be healthier.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, you're probably under a rock. But if, just there's some component of your life you want to be healthier, whether it's relationships, being able to forgive or love harder or, right, move more or eat better. So there's this azimuth. If you think about like changing, if you go 1 degree difference from where
Mm-hmm.
you're going, let's say you're heading north, but you go 1 degree, you make a 1 degree difference, east or west, right? Like that's a significant change over the course of time.
Mm-hmm.
And actually the exponential changes you'll make by just doing one thing different each day. Could be meditating for 10 minutes in the morning. It could be making sure you walk 10,000 steps or making sure that you're writing gratitude, 3 things about how grateful for you are each day. Like imagine over the course of a year what that looks like. And because when you do, the reality is when you do like the one thing that you really need, like get 7 hours of sleep or meditate 10 minutes, everything else in your life starts to shift too for the better,
Yeah.
right? Just by me meditating in the morning actually gives me more energy to want to move more, right? So what is that 1 degree difference that you're going to make? Because wellness can be very abstract for a lot of people. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, you've talked about so many things. Where do I start? Just start with one thing. What do you need?
Yeah.
Do that. And for me right now, I'll share this. I have a physical cue-based planning is very helpful for behavior change. Meaning like, what is it? What is literally a cue to remind you to do said action and what's the reward? So flossing your teeth, if that's your, thing you need to do, we'll have
Mm-hmm.
your floss next to your toothbrush. So when you get your toothbrush out, there's the cue, you do the floss, and then you have nice, clean, minty breath teeth. For me, I have a pull-up bar. I literally built a pull-up bar outside my house because it's hard.
Hmm.
Pull-ups are not easy, but it reminds me it's my 1 degree difference. If I jump on that pull-up bar, I'm already braver, healthier, happier. Like, and I'll get up there and I'll do my routine.
Hmm.
And do I always feel like it? Absolutely not. But in order for me to do that pull up or pull ups, I need to eat healthy. I need to sleep, right? I need
Hmm.
to think positive thoughts. So that dang pull up bar is like the cue to remind me to do the thing that gives me the reward of health and wellness. So what's that for you? It could be one lady I was working with literally has a pink piece of tape on her wall for posture, right? That's her reminder is like her cue is to get up and work on her posture. And so she does yoga to help improve her posture.
Hmm.
Awesome. That's her cue. What's your cue? Figure that out and that'll really help you too versus you're going to forget, right? If you just think about it in your head, you're probably going to forget it. So what's that physical cue that will remind you to get your butt up and do it?
You know, I like that because it makes it a little bit easier. But also, I think a lot of people, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think a lot of people think that they want it bad enough, they're going to remember. Well, it's amazing how our brain suddenly forgets.
Oh yeah.
Have the best intentions. I remember a long time ago, I was wanting to write in my journal when I woke up, and I just could not remember. And I would remember hours later, and I would do it then. But the goal was to do it as soon as I woke up. And I was so frustrated. And so I finally put my journal like on my shoes because the first thing I would do is get up and put on my,
Yes.
I was like,
Right.
it wasn't that I didn't want to. I literally just did not.
Forgot.
Yeah.
That's exactly is like as humans we can forget and we can also be lazy.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to right that's why having like defaults where we our phone, right? Maybe you put it on the black screen as a default so you don't stay engaged with it. Or when you turn on your computer instead of having Facebook open, have something that you want to see, something that's more positive or affirming or the news if you want to read the news, which is not positive and affirming. But like what is it that's going to help you set a default to it so you don't have to think. And then exactly like with my journal I also forget because I have it tucked away in a drawer.
Mhm.
Now the thing is now I have to put on my hands at night because it's dry here, cream on my hands. So in the drawer when I open it up to do that, there's my journal. So it's the cue to do the 3 things, write the 3 things really quickly, and then put my gloves on, right? Go to bed. I live in a dry climate here in Colorado. So that's just a winter thing. I'm going to have to figure out something for the summer. But yeah, you got to have some cue to remember or else we will forget.
Well, it's interesting too. I think our brain tries to protect us from something new and different because it's, kind of like uh, some sort of a challenge. It's new. So our brain is like, nope, not today. It's kind of working against us already. So to set ourselves up for success in that way, it might seem silly. Like one of my friends, she used to wear workout clothes to sleep because
Yep.
she knew that if she had to get dressed first thing in the morning, she wasn't going to go to the
I do that actually.
gym.
Tuesday, Thursday, that evening, I wear my workout clothes to bed and it helps a ton because it's freaking cold here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I don't want to have to, you have to make things easier. While we
Mhm.
want discomfort in our lives, sometimes making things simple for yourselves, you can do that. You just have to plan,
Yeah.
right? You have to plan. You fail to plan, you plan to fail. Like it's actually really important. So yes, working out, I've had to transition from an afternoon workout person to a morning.
Hmm.
And I study behavior change. So for me, I'm like, how can I reverse engineer this to make this simpler for me? Because yes, it's already tough. I mean, it's tougher. Actually, the hardest thing about getting up is if I don't sleep enough.
Hmm.
So having to reverse engineer and make sure I sleep, get to bed early enough. But then the other thing is, well, getting dressed is kind of annoying in the morning when you can't see and you want it to still be dark. And so I'm just going to sleep in my workout clothes.
Mm-hmm. It's brilliant because of and then especially if it's cold, the last thing you want to do is get out of
Yeah,
bed and like get naked and put something else on. I mean,
yeah,
just saying, like it just makes perfect sense to me to do that because for me that would be the hiccup. That's the thing that would throw me off. And you know, like when I was trying to eat healthy, I had like all my meal prep and all this, and then I'd be at work and a meeting would run long and I wouldn't get home in time for like when I planned my meal. I was like, crap, now I'm starving. What am I going to do? And that's when I would veer off and go through like a drive-through or something. Instead, I was like, it took me a couple weeks to figure out, why don't you put some healthy snacks in?
yeah, yeah,
So you don't go 180
yeah.
other
That you
direction.
learn. And even doing that, that's part of being human. But then like, okay, you didn't fall off the bandwagon. It was a lesson learned and you keep moving forward. Like so
Exactly.
many people like let something like that totally take them off track and like, oh man, I just totally messed up. Now I'm done.
Yeah.
And right, you can see how the stories just start to line up and you're like, no, you just had one piece of fast food. Big deal. Just pack snacks next time.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
probably do that once a week right now. Like, yeah, I'm really hungry. That pastry looks really good. Um, okay, lessons learned. I'm gonna bring a snack next time. But sometimes it's okay to eat a freaking pastry. You
Yes, I
know?
am with you.
Please.
I am with you. For me, it's sometimes I'll eat ice cream. It makes me not feel well, but I love it so much. I know full well when I'm going in that I'm not going to feel the best afterwards, and I do it anyway. But I know what I'm doing.
I do the same thing. Yes. I mean, but it's like, wow, I know I'm gonna have this major like insulin dump and
Hmm.
I'm gonna feel tired.
Yeah.
Am I prepared for that? Yes, because this Reese's pastry, whatever it is so good.
Yeah. It's
But
like,
I try to like, at least with desserts or stuff like that, I try to really pick places if I do want it or like that are really quality that I
hmm.
really like versus like, oh man, I'm just gonna go to McDonald's and get their,
Yeah.
chocolate chip cookie. Like I like to invest in the dessert.
Me too.
Um,
Better
so
be
that
worth it.
it's got to be worth it. Yeah. But it is okay. Like that's
Yeah.
part of life is enjoying it. It's just, I know as cliche as it sounds, it's moderation. And I'm not eating that every single day. And
Hmm.
nor do I want to because it doesn't give me great energy.
Hmm.
But when you're mindful and eating it, you're like, wow, someone really put a lot of care into this pastry and like look at all the intricacies of it. And it's so yummy. And yes,
Yeah.
it's not doing a ton for my energy right now, but
But it sure tastes good.
I'm really enjoying the taste.
Exactly. And it looked pretty.
And it looked pretty. Yes. Hmm.
On that note, we do need to go to one more commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more, about wellness in general, but like these 5 pillars, because, we've talked a lot about different ones, but the thing that I love about you, Theresa, is that you're talking more about the stuff that you can do that's behind the scenes versus you need to have X amount of vegetables and like that's what Google's for. So we'll
Right.
be back in just a minute. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and today's awesome, amazing guest, Dr. Theresa Larson. Welcome back.
Hello.
Hi. So, we were talking about your idea of five pillars of wellness, and I'm sure it's not necessarily your idea, but I like how you broke it down and own it as a way to really genuinely help people. And I'd like you to speak into that a little bit more.
So the five pillars are, I mean, working with in the Veteran Administration, they have this whole health program and there's 8 pillars, right? And it includes financial health and spiritual health and things like that. If you just Google pillars of well-being, I'm sure you're going to get a lot of different ideas out there. But what I chose was like the things that you can control. Not that life is about controlling everything, but we can do a lot of preventative work on ourselves and we don't do enough. I think probably 70% of the population doesn't do enough in America. And so when I was like trying to break down, right, where I wanted to focus my efforts, first of all, corporate wellness sucks. In a sense of like employee assistance programs don't work. Very few people use them. And it's usually like a pump and dump type program. And nobody needs more virtual wellness programs, really. There are some great ones out there, but it's, people need connection. But I found that where I was going to make the most impact was with leadership. Well, now leadership wants to know, and I want to know objective changes. How can I make objective changes in my life? And how does this tie to my ability to lead? So when I was thinking about the problem I'm solving, it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to help solve retention and productivity. Those are things that I have to go through HR to find out about, though. But the things that I can directly assess, what are those things? One, I can look at the 5 people you hang out with.
Sorry about that. I don't know how that happened. I apologize.
Okay. That's okay. So the 5 people you hang out with, that is, technically more subjective, but the objective ones are movement, right? Planned and unplanned. Are you getting 120 minutes of moderate intensity activity a week? Are you walking 8,000 to 12,000 steps with food, right? Are you drinking half your body weight in ounces of water each day? And are you getting 800 grams of fruits and vegetables, right? Like just simple things like that. That's actually a lot, like with a couple pounds of vegetables and fruits, but it adds up and it really helps energize your body, right? What about meditation? What are you doing to train your mind? And the case I make for meditation mindfulness is this: chronic stress. 90% of systemic diseases come from stress, chronic stress. Now, our country is really good at looking downstream at issues like the symptoms. You have hypertension, you have heart disease, you have diabetes, asthma, adult asthma. But looking upstream is where I'm at. It's like, well, what was the thing that happened that caused that tension, or things that happen each day that cause that physical and emotional tension that's now lasted longer than 3 months, which is chronic, that is now creating hypertension, heart disease, other things. Or, you're blaming it on why you eat the way you do and the lack of movement, right? We have to look upstream. So if we look upstream, we're not training our mind to handle the stress that we're up against. We're not training our bodies enough. We're not giving it the fuel it needs. So the cause is actually the fact that we're not doing those things. So the solution is reversing that. Let's train our minds to handle the stress we're up against. I want to do really hard things, which means I'm going to be up against mental and emotional and physical stress every day. And if I don't handle it, I will break, right? Which I have before. But now I know better. And now I know that it's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. It's a necessary thing to keep me healthy so I can do what I do now the best I possibly can, but also last long in my job. And so now when I speak like that, right, and I share the story around this and the objective measurements, now leaders are paying attention. Now people are like, now you're solving a problem for me, versus throwing spaghetti at a wall and saying, good luck with my really not engaging virtual wellness program for your employees. It doesn't work. And so that's, I chose those 5 things, which really 4 of them are the most objective. The 5th one, social support, is not. But if you really look at like the 5 people you look at or hang out with the most, are they better in your life or not?
Exactly. You can choose those 5.
You can choose those 5, exactly. And it's not, when I look at that, I don't necessarily engage with 5 people every day. It depends on what I'm doing. Like if I'm out doing a talk, yes. But really the 5 people I'm paying the most attention to, like, yeah, okay. These people I really admire and I want my kids to know. Has it always been that way? No. I have had people in my business and in my life and who I was trying to hold on to that when I look at them, I'm like, I really don't want my kids to know you. You're actually not healthy for me. Why am I trying to hold on to you when you're not healthy for me? And it's really therapeutic to let people go. I'm not a big proponent of cutting people out. I think that's actually really all or nothing thinking.
Yeah.
I think it's you gotta love and let go and keep your distance, right? And it's okay to do that. And I've done that with many, many people. And it's been really healthy, right? I choose to engage when I want to. And these are the people I'm going to hold close.
Yeah, no, I like that so much better than just like, you're dead to me. Coming from the East Coast, it's like you do something slightly wrong and like that person doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that happens. It's crazy.
There's plenty of people that, from my past that they're there for a reason, but that doesn't mean that I won't have a conversation with them every once in a while. They were still a part of my life and an important part of my life at some point. Doesn't mean I won't ever talk to them again, but I'm definitely not, they're not one of my 5.
No, yeah. And I think wisdom, as we age, we kind of learn who, you kind of realize how people impact you.
Yeah.
So I research though behavior. It's like, wow, these people really do impact you. And, so being choosy of who, I'm constantly actually kind of looking at even my friends group and saying, who build me up, who make me feel good, and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And then lovingly kind of giving space. And I'll share this because it doesn't mean you have to have a conversation with everyone about this. It's just you. This is for you.
Yeah.
Forgiveness of others is for you. I've forgiven people who haven't forgiven me for whatever it is they're doing, whatever it is I did to them that they can't get over, right? Which and there's stories there. And, but I have forgiven. I've chosen to forgive people who haven't done the same for me, but that's okay because I'm doing it because I don't want to hold on to that tension, that physical and emotional tension that turn into, guess what? Systemic disease.
Yeah.
And I say that as a medical professional, like it's not fear mongering. It's just the reality. We live in a world where we're under so much stress anyway, and our brains and bodies are not evolutionarily ready for it. And we have to train our bodies and minds to be different and calm. And if your life is a stress case, it's high time to start changing that. Because your life depends on it.
It literally does. All right. We have about 30 seconds left before we have to wrap up. So are there any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Well, you see here my book. I wrote a memoir a few years ago and when I was blonde. And it actually is my come to wellness story. So my struggle with an eating disorder and choosing to be well every day and what that looks like and what struggling with a mental health condition looked like as a combat veteran. That's my story. Definitely take a read, share it with someone in your life, and then also download that Lifestyle RX because that'll help you.
And that's what the QR code is for, everyone. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. I like this wellness idea. It's not so dramatic and in your face. You know, it doesn't have to be scary. It could just be small changes that make huge impact. So thank
Yep.
you so much. And everyone, that is
Thank
all
you.
the time that we have for today. I want to say thank you for joining us, and we will be back again on Thursday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week.